When my daughter-in-law told me to stay out of their house, I didn't cry. I just stood there, holding the small bowl of curry I had cooked for my son, and smiled. The smile didn't come from strength. It came from disbelief. The kind you feel when something you never imagined suddenly becomes real. I still remember the smell of the rice simmering that morning. It was his favorite. Coconut rice, the way I used to make it when he came home from school hungry. He used to shout from the gate, "Ma, is lunch ready?" And his voice would fill the whole lane. That voice hasn't called me Ma in a long, long time. I live in a small town surrounded by fields and dusty roads. Our home isn't big, just 2 bedrooms, a small veranda, and a courtyard with an old neem tree. My husband, Ravi, passed away years ago when our son Arjun was just 12. After that, it was just the 2 of us, mother and son, trying to figure out life together. I used to work part-time at the local school's kitchen. It wasn't much, but it helped us survive. Every rupee I earned went toward his schooling. I remember sitting late at night sewing clothes for neighbors while Arjun studied beside me. He'd sometimes fall asleep on his books, and I'd gently lift his head and say, "You'll get a stiff neck if you sleep like that." He'd smile and mumble, "Sorry, Ma," before drifting off again. Those nights were our whole world, quiet, simple, filled with love and dreams. Arjun was a bright child. He always wanted to do something that made me proud. When he got a scholarship to study in the city, I cried and laughed at the same time. It was the first time he was going away from home. I packed his bags 3 days early, shirts ironed, notebooks covered, and a small steel lunchbox tucked inside. At the bus stop, he hugged me tight and said, "I'll call every night, Ma. Don't worry." And he did. For the first few months, we talk about his classes, his new friends, the food he missed. He'd ask, "Did you eat on time?" And I'd tease him, "You've become my parent now." Those phone calls were the highlight of my days. The world felt smaller when I heard his voice, but slowly, the calls became shorter. Then they became less frequent. He'd say, "Ma, I'm busy," or, "Ma, I'll call you tomorrow." And sometimes tomorrow never came. I told myself he was just busy. That's what young people do. But deep down, something started to ache. It's not anger, really. It's more like emptiness, a quiet space where love used to live. Years passed. He finished college, got a job, and called to tell me, "Ma, I'm getting married." My heart leapt with joy. I still remember standing in the courtyard hearing those words. He said her name was Ria, a sweet, polite girl from his office. He sent me her photo through a neighbor's phone because I didn't even have one of my own back then. She looked beautiful, kind eyes, a shy smile. I prayed she would love him the way I did. The wedding was in the city. I wore the same green sari I had worn for his graduation. I didn't mind being the simple village mother among all the fancy people. I just wanted to see my son happy. During the ceremony, he touched my feet and said, "Thank you for everything, Ma." I blessed them both and whispered, "Stay kind to each other." That was all I wanted. After the wedding, Arjun called less. He said he was busy settling in, adjusting, learning about married life. I understood. Every mother does. I told him, "Take your time, Beta. I'm fine here." But sometimes, late at night, I'd stare at his old room, the empty bed, the shelf with his school trophies, and whisper his name into the silence. One day, he called and said, "Ma, why don't you come stay with us for a few days?" My heart filled with excitement. I packed early, just like before. I even made pickles and sweets to take along, the ones he loved as a child. When I reached their apartment in the city, Ria greeted me politely, but there was something distant in her smile. It wasn't rude, just careful, like she was being kind because she had to. She said, "Auntie, please make yourself comfortable." Auntie. That word hit me harder than I expected. I told myself it didn't matter, that she was just being respectful, but a part of me missed hearing "ma" from someone in that house. Arjun was busy with work calls, but he still smiled and said, "I'll take you out this weekend, Ma." That weekend never came. Each day, he'd rush off early and come back late, tired and distracted. I'd wait by the window hoping we could share tea together like old times. One evening, while I was making dinner, Ria said softly, "Auntie, please don't trouble yourself. We usually order food." I smiled and said, "It's no trouble at all. Arjun loves this curry." She didn't reply. Later, I overheard her say on the phone, "I wish he'd told me before bringing her. It's awkward." I didn't mean to hear it, but once you do, you can't unhear it. That night, I cried quietly on my pillow, not because she was unkind, but because my presence had become a problem. Days went by. The house didn't feel like mine, or even like home. I started folding my sari differently, walking softly, trying not to take up space. I thought maybe if I became smaller, quieter, they'd feel more comfortable. One morning, while I was sweeping the living room, Ria said, "Auntie, please don't. We have a maid for that." I smiled and nodded, but inside I felt like a guest overstaying her welcome. Later, when Arjun came home, I said, "I think I'll go back tomorrow. The air here feels too heavy." He looked up from his phone, surprised. "Already, Ma? You just came." "I know, Beta, but home is calling." He smiled faintly. "Okay, Ma, I'll book your ticket." That was it. No protest, no emotion. He didn't even ask why my eyes looked so red. The next morning, I left quietly after breakfast. Ria was in the kitchen, and Arjun was getting ready for work. I touched his shoulder and said, "Take care of yourself." He said, "You too, Ma," without looking up. On the train back, I held the steel lunchbox I'd brought, still full. I stared at it for a long time before opening it and eating alone, slowly, tasting the food that no one else wanted. That was the day I felt something change inside me. That was the day my son stopped calling me Mom. I didn't tell anyone back home what had happened. Neighbors asked how the newlyweds were. I said, "They're happy, busy with work." And that was true. They were busy, just not with me. At night, I'd sit by the neem tree in our courtyard, listening to the crickets, watching the stars. I'd whisper a little prayer that he was eating well, sleeping enough, living kindly. That's what mothers do. We worry even when we've been forgotten.